Mercury has gone retrograde. Yep, on August 5th, just 2 days ago from this live, it's the 7th, Mercury went retrograde in Virgo. But that is not the only sign that this Mercury retrograde is going to happen in. In fact, this Mercury retrograde occurs in 2 signs, both Virgo and Leo. Now, that's a big deal because what we're looking at is a third energy in this particular retrograde that doesn't occur in all other retrogrades if it's just one sign. And this third cusp energy, that's what I call it, a third cusp energy, changes the whole game because it's not just about a Mercury retrograde in Virgo and that archetype and all that's going to bring up. It's also about a Mercury retrograde in Leo. And it's also about the space between, the transitional space between Leo and Virgo. So I'm going to be diving into all of those themes, Virgo, the space between Leo and Virgo, and also Leo, and bring it all together for you. Now, this third cusp energy simply really means that there is a lot more going on than usual, a lot more. And what we need to understand about that first is, let's go back to the ancient Greeks. What was Hermes, as the Greeks called Mercury? Romans took over and renamed Hermes Mercury. But let's go back to the ancient Greeks. What is Hermes? What is Mercury? Mercury is the messenger of the gods. So whenever there's a Mercury retrograde, and this is something that's not often addressed in astrology, especially around Mercury retrogrades, but whenever there is a Mercury retrograde, always remember this. There is Hermes Mercury delivering a message or messages really on behalf of the gods. And what do I mean by a gods? Well, the other planetary cycles currently in play. So true to how the ancients identified Hermes as messenger of the gods, we're talking about messages on behalf of, let's start at the very tip top, Eris retrograde in Aries right now. We're talking about messages on behalf of Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, heading back on September 1st into Capricorn for the last time. We're talking about messages on behalf Uranus in Taurus, which is in its retrograde zone right now, and it's going to station retrograde on September 1st. So you have Pluto going back into, this is crazy, Pluto going back into Capricorn on the 1st, and then Uranus and Taurus stationing retrograde the same day. There's a lot going on September 1st. We're going to get there. We have Chiron retrograde in Aries, and this Mercury retrograde has a message on behalf of that. We also have Saturn retrograde in Pisces, something I just talked about in my last live, right? In depth for quite a while. You can go check that out on YouTube. But yeah, we have that going on. And then there's messages on behalf of that. And oh, did I miss Neptune retrograde in Pisces? I sure did. We have Neptune retrograde in Pisces and messages on behalf of Neptune. We have also Jupiter, not retrograde yet, but in its retrograde zone and currently moving forward in Gemini. There's going to be messages on behalf of that. And we're also getting messages, I think, I should say whispers on behalf of what's ahead with Mars once it goes retrograde later this fall, really in December, in both Cancer and Leo, another cusp third energy with Mars heading our way. This year's off the charts, as you probably could tell by what's happening in the world and what you're living, what I'm living, right? We also have, and this is really interesting, I mean, literally almost to the exact time. I'm going to try to put up this chart. That's one of the charts I'm going to show you because it's 8:28 p.m. I have been way delayed on this live because we had a power outage. And I'm also wrestling with a dog that just got neutered. So that's been fun. But thank God the power came back on and here we are. I was like, I'm going live. I'm ready. I've been working on this for days. Well, anyway, let's get back to this. Today, Venus in Virgo conjuncts Mercury in Virgo. Mercury retrograde in Virgo. So I'm going to be pulling a lot of the themes out of that right into what I'm going to guide you on. I mean, astrology is what we live. First of all, just know that's part of my philosophy. I'll talk a little bit more about my philosophy later. So it's also based in the psychic law of synchronicity, that what's happening out there is happening in here, right? What's happening in here in some ways happening out there. There's this, Jung would say, a causal connection. I also think there's a causal level of synchronicity, but I won't go there. So we're looking at this brilliant tool, my favorite intuitive tool, astrology, as a tool of synchronicity. Damn right. And it works just like a clock. So when we get into, I don't know if you know this, but there are actually 3 phases in a Mercury retrograde process. There is the Mercury retrograde. That's actually just the second phase. There's the setup phase. That's the first phase. And then there's the integration phase, and that's the last phase. And this time, setup phase began on July 16th. And the end of the third phase happens, and check out this date, on September 11th, 9/11. So we got a lot to discuss. I mean, did you just track, first of all, that there are actually 5 major planets retrograde right now? That's a lot. And that's in addition to Mercury. So we got 6 planets total in retrograde, and some headed toward retrograde. Now, this just really means that this Mercury retrograde is packed with crossroads, life-changing, life-altering, destiny-shaping dynamics and themes. So we got a lot to talk about. We definitely do. So what is the Leo Virgo cusp energy about? Well, I'm actually going to share that with you later, so stay tuned for that. But what I'd like to do first is just ask you some questions for self-evaluation. Now, some of these might apply a lot, some not so much. And you also might find that, I'm not so sure, Robert, that anything really applied to me. By the way, I'm Robert Ohato. I am an astrologer and also intuitive. I've been working with astrology for, this tells you my age, 51, soon to be 52. I've been working with astrology for 30 years. And I worked for 15 years full-time as an intuitive consultant. Did a lot of stuff with Oprah's team, Fortune 500 companies that have been around the block, and individual people. I also have, I would say, a master level skill set with astrology. It's just my favorite thing. So I'm so excited to share with you that skill set and help you understand the energies that are happening right now and how to work with them. So these energies, just so you know, are like psychic weather, the Earth's psychic weather. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my approach to astrology, which I call holocompass astrology, in a bit. But first, I want you to understand that these energies, just like the weather, we can't decide it's not Mercury retrograde. It's psychic energy and energetics that are sourced from the Earth's relationship to the living energy pattern that we call the solar system. You can't change that. We're not changing that any more than the rotation of the Earth on its axis, or the moon around the Earth, or the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. And, I have a lot more to say about these things, but let's get to this evaluation, because I think this will help you get a sense of some of the themes that I'm going to go into. And it's certainly not all of them. So if you don't hear one that really pings you, hang out. Please do hang out, because I think you're still going to get something deep out of this, because here's one superstition I want to debunk right now. Just because you're not a Leo, or just because you're not a Virgo, doesn't mean you are not affected by this psychic weather. We all are. Now, we all have different soul agreements and, let's say, GPS coordinates within this psychic weather, and that would be something we could determine through our natal birth chart. Absolutely true too. But everybody, without exception, because you're living in the energetic field of Gaia and its matrix of energies and archetypal cycles, everyone's affected by this. If I had your birth chart in front of me, I would show you exactly where, and then intuit exactly how it's affecting you. And I'm going to get into what the effect actually is and what the transformation is about shortly. But I just want to make sure you know, just because you're not a Leo or Virgo, do not shut this video off. Oh no. Hang out. Come on. Now, our evaluation. First question. Does it feel like your light, like your energy, your life force, your luminosity has been dimming lately, leaving you feeling a bit invisible? Have you been struggling with visibility issues in your life? Meaning you feel like others don't get you, see you, understand you. I want you to think about, because we're going to get to this, what does visibility mean to you? How would you define visibility? If I were to ask you, hey, what is visibility? What would you say? And there's no right or wrong answer, but this is always about me as your guide, your astrological Sherpa, helping you find your way up this mountain of understanding and really getting to your own answers and your own truths. So I'm not going to say this is what visibility is. I'll offer some options you probably haven't thought of later on here, but what does visibility mean to you? What does it mean to shine? What does that mean to you? Like if I were to ask you, what does it mean to shine in your life? If I were to say, hey, do you feel shiny? Do you feel like you shine out? What does that mean to you? Just we're getting in. We're going in through these cues, all right? Now, next question, and it might seem like this is a bit out of context to what you've been talking about so far. No, it ain't. Because now I'm going full Virgo here. Has your health felt a bit off? And by that, I just mean tired. You're getting rest, maybe you're not, but let's just say you're getting rest. So why are you tired? I mean, what's this? Why would you be tired if you're sleeping? And, you just, something's off. We all can feel in our bodies, right? When something's just not quite on, like that feeling right before you start to get a virus sick, like a cold or something, you kind of feel your body a bit off and aching and maybe that, but just a sense of off, like my health, my vitality, my health system, something's up. Is that something that you've been feeling lately and you're not sure why? Like you're not going maybe into full-blown virus mode. You're not getting a full-blown cold or crash and burn illness, but man, you're just not feeling quite right. Is that you? That's been me. Let me just tell you right now. Some of these I'm definitely feeling. Have you been feeling creatively confused or unsure of what you're destined to do next creatively? What kind of feeling like I felt this was my path. Now I'm creatively kind of feeling, I don't know. Do I reinvent the wheel on the same path or is this the path that I just got to turn right now? We've gone as far as we can creatively. Have you been feeling that? Are you realizing that you need to address the light dimmers that are in your life? I would imagine, because I think this is true for most people, including myself, that we have light dimmers in our life that we don't even realize that's what they are. What do I mean by the light dimmer? I mean someone who, whether it's their vibe or what they say to you, how they treat you, or how they consider you, or really don't consider you, maybe, they just are always notching you down a few lumens. You're just kind of being dimmed down. When you're around them, it feels like they're kind of telling you to stop playing so bright. You ain't so bright. What are you doing shining like that? That sort of thing we used to hear as kids. At least I grew up in the 70s, so we heard this all the damn time. Who do you think you are? When you reach out to shine bright or embolden yourself with some sovereign energy and, rule yourself and begin to rule your space. Do you have people like that in your life? Do you have friends, family, anyone in your life that you would go, I think they're a light dimmer? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why they're in your life and how to spot the ones that you don't even recognize as light dimmers yet. The magnetics, the archetypal magnetics that have brought light dimmers into your life. I mean, obviously, if we're born into a family, boom, there it is. And light dimming is such a crucial issue these days, right? With social media and with trolls on social media and people just out to dim people down. We've got people in elected office that do this all the time. And that's how they curry favor with their particular followers or voters, is by dimming other people down. So this has become, sadly, over the last, I'd say 15 years, something with the advent of social media and also political shifts, certainly in the United States, that's been normalized. We've been actually encouraged to dim each other down. And that goes in many different directions, from coming for people because they're not supporting what you feel should be supported regarding, let's say, Israel and Gaza, and trying to knock them down, call them out, cancel them, dim them down. That happens. Or, fill in your blanks. But I want you to get a very holistic sense of light dimming, because this is Virgo and Leo, which is about the light, but now back to Virgo. And that's about, we got to look at our holistic light systems. Have you ever considered your capacity for creative self-expression? That capacity is connected to an ecosystem in you, a light ecosystem, because it absolutely is. And this Mercury retrograde is saying, all right, as all Mercury retrogrades do, wake up. You are actually in a dimming system in these areas of your life, or in all. Holistically, you have systems of self-management, self-regulation, trying to be the socially acceptable version of self. And all these basically are about you not shining too damn bright. Because there's a truth in shining bright that this Mercury retrograde is going to have us all looking at. And that's, when you shine bright, you light up the shadows of other people. And most of the time, rather than look at their shadow, other people want to dim you right back down. They're not going to want to look at their shadow. And maybe, hey, that's just fine. Let them do them. But then we got to turn to this question that I'm on here right now. And that's, why are they in your life? Who's in your life and why? At the level of who dims you. And yeah, let's be balanced here. Who lights you up? More of that, please. Right? Okay. Now, I ain't done with this evaluation. We got a few more questions here. So, do you feel lately, this is totally happening to me, by the way, tonight, case in point, does it seem like you must exert so much freaking energy to stay focused, to get focused and stay focused, to get any damn thing done? And do you wake up, maybe this is me projecting, but I'm going to just ask you this question because this is what my life tends to be centering around in this retrograde. And this retrograde is really powerful for me. So do you wake up and feel like, okay, I've got this and this to do. And then midday, you've had 5 things sabotage you out of your control from doing that particular list of things. I mean, I had one day I woke up, actually it was Monday. Monday. And I have had an arborist come to treat my trees, who left the gate of my backyard open. So when I let my dog Charlie out with a cone on, because he just got neutered, he went on a little joyride around the neighborhood. And about 30 minutes into this list I was rocking, I realized, where's Charlie? And I spent the rest of 3 hours of the day freaked out. We have mountain lions, we have coyote packs. I mean, we've got cars. Finally I found him. Hallelujah. But took my whole day out. My whole frickin' day. It's similar things happening to you. Like, you got a plan. You trying to do right. Stay on point with your life systems, your to-do lists. And you know what? So-and-so and this and that. And then by the end of the day, you're like, well, I got one thing done on that list. And maybe it's just your energy level. I don't know. But does that apply? Now, last question. Are you tired of how social media generally, I would say most notably, I'm going to go into Instagram here a little, but generally, are you tired of how it makes you feel? But at the same time, you sense like, I'm kind of hooked in. I get into the time-wasting scroll where, you're just looking at the next thing, reading the next article, reading the next thing. Next thing you know, an hour's gone by. And you're like, yeah, that to-do list. Oh, crap. So, this is something to address, perhaps for many people, I think. And have you ever thought of why are you doing that? I mean, there's a lot of reasons that are already known, right? It's addicting. They engineer it to be addicting. Everyone is clamoring with clickbait to get you to click on an article or click on this or click on this. And maybe you're just someone that likes learning lots of information. And if you are, it's a rough time because there's tons of information and some of it's kind of interesting. I think I'm speaking about myself here and kind of interesting to know. So if any of these questions in this evaluation, this opener hit home to you, even a little bit, well, welcome, my friend, to some of the major themes that are part of this current Mercury retrograde in Leo Virgo. Now, I'm probably going to add about 5 more additional themes as we get into the meat of this and I start talking about the specifics and certainly through the phases and some of the planetary aspects that Mercury is making through its retrograde process. But, like I'm going to address this thing that kind of falls in line with some of what I just said with social media. You might need to address this thing I've identified as being visibly invisible. Yeah, paradox, right? But hang out with me because I'm going to talk about it very, very soon. It's a thing. It's a thing, being visibly invisible. So stick around for this live stream because what I'm up to here and what I want to address is through this Mercury retrograde in Leo Virgo is why you dim down and how this Mercury retrograde wants you to learn how to shine bright. So stay with me. Okay, after that music interlude and cool graphics, I'm back. Let's get into this. Let's talk about this Mercury retrograde in Leo Virgo. Before that, briefly, I just want to talk about my approach to astrology and how to best use this video event guide, which will be on demand after this live. So whether you're catching this on demand or with me live right now, just how to kind of participate with me in this guidance. I call my astrology holocompass astrology, and it's spelled, the compass is spelled with a K, which is a symbolic connection to Chiron. And also to this holocompass idea is about really understanding the holistic dynamics of the Earth's energetic grid, its archetypal cycles of time, which astrology actually maps brilliantly. Just astrology does. If you see it the right way, and if you're willing to look at astrology more intuitively and certainly archetypally, it's powerful. It's a powerful compass. Ergo, the word compass in my branding here. And I want to introduce everybody actually to a new way to think about holocompass astrology and just astrology in general. A lot of times astrologers, and I would say early on, I used to do this as well. We speak about astrology as if it's this celestial system in the sky. I always say astrology is what you live, and that what the ancients were doing was just decoding through synchronicity the energetics of planet Earth, Gaia, and Gaia's relationship to the energy pattern of the solar system. All right. So if that said, what we're really talking about is Gaia's astrology, not ours. We're visitors with soul agreements to be here. This is part of my approach and philosophy to astrology. Astrology and the natal chart can actually reveal a lot about what that soul agreement dynamic's about, and timing for sure. and archetypal parts of you that are meant to develop, some that are native to your soul. And also the way I am able to use the tool, I can track and map cultural dynamics, social dynamics, as well as personal dynamics, because they're all interrelated. So for a brief example here, if you are someone who is a woman in a patriarchal society, well, that needs to factor into how the chart is seen. If you are someone who's African-American in a racist society, that needs to be factored into how the chart is read. If you are gay, like me, or anyone else in the LGBTQ community, well, that's got to be factored in as well. There is more behind the structure of the chart, your natal chart, and that more is your soul. And that needs to be connected to as well. And what the chart represents is a GPS of your soul agreement, your destiny, your journey from fate to destiny in this lifetime, and what you're meant to become on a certain time, through a certain timeline. And read this way, astrology that's why it's my favorite tool. So damn accurate. It gives structure, but I'm not one for formula, because formula will betray intuition. So when I look at intuitive dynamics within astrology, I take into account my intuitive skills in as much as my mastery with understanding astrology as a system, as an archetypal system. So that's generally, just to kind of give you a sense of my approach to astrology, how I roll with it. I do not think the planets cause a damn thing. I'll speak as if they do. Causative language is what I was brought up on, if you will. And I think it illustrates and gives more of a sense of this movement to a cycle and a dynamic happening in a cycle. So I like causative language actually to do that. But I don't believe or really know. I don't really consider that the planets cause anything to happen. I know they don't. It's just a way that through the psychic law of synchronicity, the ancients begin to map the creative matrix of Earth. So these are Gaia's cycles. And we're fused into this matrix of Earth School because we decided to come here for a learning, co-creative journey. And here we are. Now, it's all about synchronicity, but we also do have choice and free will where we can wield that, which isn't a lot of places actually. And what I mean by that is most of us are far more predictable byproducts of culture and society than we are individuated, conscious X factor co-creators. And, that's okay. But part of a Mercury retrograde is to wake up out of that conditioning and find a different, authentic, more soul expressed, certainly Leo this time, way into co-creation that isn't just you repeating what your family did or your society did and does, your culture, what it believes, etc. You have to find and source your own soul self to really get into X factor space with choice, meaning choice that is really out of free will, that also pulls in light from the energetic realm and puts it into play. And that's the focus of my work. All my courses in some way or other are about the X factor space of choice. And that's why I wrote a book called Transforming Fate into Destiny. So this is an empowering time if we look at Mercury retrograde, because what Mercury retrograde seek to do through this Earth School we're in is break us out of where we're unconscious and in some unconscious pattern with, this time, Leo and Virgo, and the transitional space between that third cusp energy. So that said, what we're looking at here, as I said earlier, right, astrology and Mercury retrograde, per Hermes and the Greeks, is about Mercury as messenger of the gods. But it's not just the outer gods, it's our inner gods too. It's the inner creative pantheon of forces we each carry in a unique way that we're bound to through our soul agreements So getting some kind of new revelation or message through the Mercury retrograde in regards to all that's happening both out and inside of us. And then coming to some new awareness through the retrograde process and its phases so that we can actually move forward this time with some new mooring and authenticity that is founded in Leo, Virgo, and the space between. So that's what's up here. If you're more the kind of person that wants an astrologer to tell you what's going to happen, well, that's cool. I will say some of that, but I'm more interested in how you can happen to what's going to happen, aren't you? If you say you're co-creator, well, let's measure up to that word and let's get curious about how we can happen to life and not just look at how life can happen to us. And unfortunately, you know, that way of using astrology is very common. And I call that a victim-based approach because whenever we are being acted upon by life, it's our victim, and this isn't right or wrong, that is negotiating that process. So life happens to me or at me. And there's two sides to this for the victim and us. There's the good side where, you know, it's fortuitous and it's wonderful and this opportunity or this door opens. And then it's also, this shouldn't have happened. Why did this happen to me? That shouldn't have happened. But you know what? It did. And so, you know, so I want you to use this guide to empower yourself to go into the themes I'm going to present, use the timing as much as you want. I would highly encourage you, if you don't already have a copy of your natal birth chart, to get one. There are free services online. I will be bringing a free service to my website actually this fall. And by the way, anyone who's interested in studying astrology with me, I'm actually already planning that launch of a program that's going to start, I believe, in 2025, but I'm launching it this fall to register, and it's limited to 100 people. So you might want to get on my newsletter if that interests you, and definitely stay aware. I'm finally, after 12 years of not teaching, I'm coming back to teach astrology actually as a tool, and it's going to be a complete reboot because I've grown so much in 12 years with my work. So that said, get a journal for this Mercury retrograde. I'm going to have prompts in here. I'm going to give you prompts and things to consider. This is alchemy. This is alchemical instruction. Mercury retrogrades are alchemical instruction, and the primary focus is around the mind. How do you think? What are your mental sets? How do you perceive through the mind your reality? And in a retrograde, we go to the shadow side of this in you. And we do it through the sign or signs that Mercury is retrograde in, this time signs, and this third transitional space that moves up forward. And I'm going to give it all definition before long here. So you're going to want a journal to work this through. I think it's really useful. And I'm going to give you things to track and things to consider all along through this Mercury retrograde overall entire process, which is comprised of 3 phases, and I'm going to present those shortly. Do not go hide under the bed, and do not just think that Mercury retrogrades are 2D dynamics where there's just tech issues, wait it out, don't sign any contracts, don't make any major decisions. Please don't do that. Meet and greet life, what is happening, the timing, and the synchronicity as it arrives in your life, with curiosity, if you can. I definitely throw my victim parties. You should have seen Monday. So that's cool. But I also know that that's not going to ultimately move me forward or empower me to the next X factor flow chart in my life of potential. So I try not to hang out there too long, but also I'm not saying judge yourself either. Virgo's shadow archetypes are many and well known in our culture. How about one called the perfectionist? We're not going to get perfectionists here, you know, and we're not going to get perfectionists with our perfectionists either. So hang with me in compassion and an open heart and in curiosity. It's the best medicine for Mercury retrograde. And I think probably some humor because a lot of times that's what's been getting me through. I'll just say that. If you were a fly on the wall in my house, you'd be like, oh my God, that guy calls himself a spiritual teacher and astrologer. And what else? Really? Yeah, it's been messy. So This is meant to guide you. I'm not here to tell you your truth. I'm here to guide you to it. And I will challenge your shadow in the process. Just be curious about it. There's never an attempt to make anyone right or wrong here. It is about triggering up into conscious awareness, blind spots with compassion, so that you can evolve and grow versus repeat and stay stuck. Every Mercury retrograde, by the way, will have this in common. So by the time you get through this, because I got a lot to talk about, it's going to be one of my longer ones. I've been going long lately. You're going to, I think, want to watch this a few times. Maybe, as the phases unfold, because there's going to be some jam-packed ass guidance here. Now, if we just take an astronomical look at Mercury retrograde real quick, just for a couple minutes here, let's look at what it really astronomically is. It is the illusion based on our, meaning Earth's, situation in the living energy pattern of the solar system and the Earth's relationship to the orbit of Mercury. It's the Earth's orbit in relationship to Mercury's orbit. And 3 times a year for about 3 weeks. This is actually a longer retrograde. It's 23 days. Usually it's just 21, sometimes 22. But there's this phenomena of, like, when you're driving a car and someone else is by you in a 2-lane highway, or 4, I don't know what the correct term is, but you're driving in the same direction by each other, and that person starts to seem like they're going slower because your car's going faster. And we would say they look like they're retrograding. But they're still moving forward. All the planets move in their orbit forward. And all planets, by the way, in our solar system will have the appearance of retrogression at one time or another. There's some funky ones like Mars, where it's like every almost 2 years it retrogrades, and Venus every, I believe, 15 months-ish it retrogrades. But Mercury's 3 times, and all the other ones are once. So Jupiter goes retrograde 1 time. Saturn, go all the way out until you hit Eris, and you've got the same situation. Those planets retrograde 1 time every year. And each one carries the retrograde dynamics of something unconscious becoming conscious, but per the planetary energy of an archetype of that planet. Mercury is so dynamic because it's amalgamating and combining all the planetary energies presently. Remember, I said a lot of them are retrograde, into messages for us through a Leo Virgo aspect of our lives. All right, cool. That's the astronomy. I would just, getting into the archetype a little bit, say that, as I've already said, Mercury is a messenger, but also personally, we each have a Mercury. And that is the part of us that is our mind, our human mind, our ego mind, that thinks, that communicates, that processes perceptions of reality, that learns, accesses information, makes decisions, pays the bills, pays attention to details, and also expresses ourselves. If we're writing, or here I am teaching, well, I'm expressing through Mercury to you. I'm sort of the midwife here of the cycle through how I'm communicating to you. That's Mercury as as a facet of this human psyche and as a facet of your power. Now, one of the things I'm going to stress right now around the human mind, the ego mind, is that we have way over inflated its power. I mean, to the point of fantasy. You'll hear, your mind is the most powerful thing, and then you're going to hear a Buddhist go, no, it's monkey mind, don't pay attention. Every thought is a prayer. Every thought is going to manifest your experience. Bullshit. Because I know there's a lot of fearful flyers flying around in the air, and planes ain't falling out of the damn sky. So, I could walk you through other just basic lived examples that you've had in your own life to show you your mind is not that powerful. It has power. And part of a Mercury retrograde is to understand what that power is and how to reorient oneself to what is your center of power in this life. It is not the human mind. I'm just going to say that for the rest of my damn life. And I think the concept that it is the human mind has caused so many people to feel ashamed about themselves. They can't think one negative thought without fearing they're going to attract some horrible thing to themselves. They can't just be a messy, fucked up human being and just living like we all are with our monkey minds and loving the best we can with our monkey minds and our human hearts. Yeah, you know what? You can be that. So does the mind matter? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, check out anyone who's succumbed to a cult. Their mind is now owned by the cult. They don't think for themselves anymore. Absolutely matters. And it has power in many certain ways. But a Mercury retrograde kind of strips back some fundamentals around, all right, we got to retune, reorganize, reshape, repattern your mind. And, you know, it's not change your thoughts, change your life. It's change your damn patterns, change your life. Your patterns have the power. In fact, your patterns inform how you think. Get your train and your train of power oriented in the retrograde appropriately. So don't put, the mind is the engine. You're not going far. So hope you understand that. And I will give examples, not with that specificity and pointing to the feebleness of the mind, but it's important to understand the mind in your ecosystem of co-creation and power. Because if you don't, you're going to fall down the rabbit holes everyone buying the book The Secret's still in. And that's not where you're going to thrive. So I want you now to just consider that what can happen if we're not willing to engage the Mercury retrograde process, this is true for every Mercury retrograde, then we activate the trickster archetype. And that trickster archetype then recruits the psychic law of synchronicity to, yes, crash a hard drive, have you miss a flight, have some mix-up happen that costs your energy and focus. Now, what's the then intention of the trickster here? It's to get you out of this allegiance to the ego mind being so powerful and put that in the back seat so the soul can take the wheel. And not only that, so you can get a deeper message from your soul and the soul of life around your purpose, around your destiny, around something that in your patterns needs to change. So that is what the trickster wants. Let me say it another way. The trickster has to trick you into the truth. Why? Because for whatever reason, you wouldn't see it directly. And the time has come for you to see this truth. So when I say, hey, do you have light dimmers in your life? And you go, oh, no, not me, Ohado. No, not me. And then I intuitively scan your relationship field and see 5. Okay, well, you're going to have a trickster journey here because you're not even in harmony with the possibility that there could be a few light dimmers hanging out. Maybe you're the light dimmer to someone else, by the way. Let's keep it, fair and balanced here. And so, this is important to understand regarding the trickster. We get it when we are not able to surrender to a deeper intuitive truth or a deeper set of instructions. And usually why we resist that is we have identities established already that, yes, do run our mind. And we don't want to let those go because who will we be? And who will we be without those identities when it comes to who we have relationships with? Are they all going to evaporate when I let go of an identity? Yeah, that could definitely happen. All said, you go into the unknown. You're just going to go into the unknown. When you let go of an identity and you go through the process of what that takes, which is enormous. I'm doing a course on that this winter. It has 6 stages involved. Then you know what? you're going to have to, face an unknown journey of self. And that's when something deeper than your social conditioning, your family trauma, and your adaptations to that trauma that became identity, something deeper than your religious tradition or your political identities, something deeper can come up and say, hey, it's me, your soul. How you doing? Let's start to express, this is very Leo, I'm giving some threads here, who you really are creatively into the world. And then your ego mind turns back to the soul and goes, no, because then now I'm vulnerable to, rejection, being booed off the stage. And I'm going to lose this set of friends because they're all Republican. And if I leave that identity, or Democrat, and if I leave that identity, what are you doing to me, man? And your soul goes, just keeping you on track with destiny. And so Mercury retrogrades become tense points at times, depending on what's scheduled for you, because you've got this interior resistance to letting go of who you think, keyword, you are, and revealing and allowing who you really are to step forward. Big, massive theme this time. And that tracks to Leo. So when we get the trickster, we do know all this too well. This is, yes, the classic superstitions you hear around Mercury retrograde: miscommunications, missed flights, accidents, computer glitches, other tech breakdowns. And, we could go on and on with other phenomena, trickster phenomena, that we will likely get a little bit of no matter what. Just keeping it real. I know this stuff like the back of my hand, and I'm still getting served. A little shadow up in here. So, but if you know the alchemy, the process, my gosh, you just click in, and if things are getting haywire, you got to stop and go, just the basic level of a Mercury retrograde, go, what truth am I not willing to listen to? That's a soul prayer. And soul prayers like that get answered without exception. But will you listen? Will you hang out for that answer? Will you watch synchronicity line up the answer? And will you go, whoa, okay, there it is. Right there through synchronicity, right up in my grill. Okay. So let's address a couple other superstitions while we're at it. How about not signing contracts during a Mercury retrograde? That can apply. But this is where I would say the context of the retrograde matters in terms of its application. Not signing contracts, not making major decisions. Let me explain how and when that may apply, because that could apply and it might not. When we are moving forward with our lives in Mercury direct, let's say, we're thinking, we're processing, we're making decisions. And sometimes it's just our patterns, our habits making the decisions. We're not really thinking too much about it. And then Mercury goes, oh, okay, we're going to do this 3-part phase. I'm going to get you up into some different things to consider. And all the stuff that I got coming your way is unconscious in you, meaning you don't know this stuff about yourself. We all have an unconscious. We all have a shadow. It's part of being human. As Deepak Chopra says, if you think you don't have a shadow, you must be standing in total darkness. Boom. Right? Now, kind of like our need for sleep every day, we need a time to just kind of take a pause and maybe go back and assess, what have I been co-creating? What have I been doing? Where am I at? What am I destined for next? Do I have identities that are kind of on the way out that I'm just holding on to because I want to hold on to that person or that job or this thing or that? I don't want to know. I want to know, and I say I do, but I don't. Mercury retrogrades generally go, okay, all right, let's give you some trickster medicine, exhaust your ego mind into the ground through about, we'll throw in a hard drive crash, we'll throw in miscommunication, lost cell phone, lost wallet. Yeah, should do it. That's pretty symbolic. Lost wallet, lost identity. All right. Yeah, you're going to get that. Yeah, I think you'll make that connection. All right, so This is all about becoming aware of more information about you or a situation. And Mercury retrograde is about becoming aware, in part, of more information about you or a situation. So if you were going to sign a contract and it was germane to the archetypal dynamics and zone of the Mercury retrograde, I would say don't do that, because you need to get more information through this retrograde process before you sign that or before you make that decision. That's when it applies. So if I'm going to get into, and I've been getting into the Leo Virgo dynamics and energies and themes. If you've got areas in your life where you have to make decisions in this arena, my counsel would be maybe pause that out, depending, because there is an orb of health dynamics in this with Virgo, and I am not a medical doctor, clearly, and I will not give you that kind of advice. So make your decisions accordingly based on the best of medical advice, professional medical advice. But we all need a time for our inner wisdom to come through, and that's so that we can, per what you often hear about Mercury retrograde, reorganize, rethink, repattern, reevaluate, redo, and reboot. Hell yeah. Now we're in line with the technical dynamics of what Mercury retrograde's energetics are about. We're out of superstition. We are technicians intuitively in ourselves, in our psyches, in the world with intuitive technical eyes. And now we're ready to do this. Okay? Now, I want you to also understand something about Mercury retrograde, certainly, especially this time. It is a counter-cultural, counter-social, and often counter-familial alchemy. It is, if you will, a deprogramming of your mind out of something where you've been patterned or adapted patterns to manage something. We all have this. I call these archetypal adaptations of survival, or archetypal survival adaptations. I've mixed it up. ASA sounds better, so I'm going to go with archetypal survival adaptations from now on. Now, we all have these. In fact, we have whole teams in our interior, in our psyche, that manage our safety, security, esteem, and survival as it should be. But there comes a time, if that team has been sourced from trauma, recruited to manage your safety, security, esteem, and survival because of a trauma in the past, well, usually doesn't that, I don't know about you, but for me, that just looks like self-sabotage now. Because I'm not in my childhood anymore in terms of I'm a 51-year-old grown-ass man, and I don't think patterns from that era apply to today very well, right? So Mercury retrogrades come and also bring a little, depending on where you're at, in an alchemy with your own dark night process, a little bit of this to the foreground. So it's countercultural. It's going to go against the they out there because that's what we've internalized inside of us. And we have to now break from that bond, that allegiance, and that internalization, and source from inside a new inner pantheon of power, empowerment, creative forces, and love. Oh, love, baby, come on, right? So let's get into the 3 phases of Mercury retrograde and start framing this up on some timing. When Mercury's moving direct, it eventually is going to enter what I call, and I suppose other astrologers probably do as well, its retrograde zone. That's the span of degrees that the astrological sign that it's going to go retrograde in, or signs, as in this case, it hits that first degree that it retrogrades all the way back to. Let me show you the stats to just land this, because the image is going to help. So we've got the entire stats here of the Mercury retrograde. And what I want you to see here is the setup phase began on July 16th. And that's when Mercury, you see that magenta line with Mercury, the symbol, hit 21 degrees Leo. So July 16th, that's when the setup for this retrograde, what does that mean? It means things start constellating in your life through synchronicity, through events, through interior dynamics that might be happening, things start to bubble up and set up the revelation ahead of something unconscious in you. And this works across all spectrums of life, from individual to the collective. So it's also a collective thing that happens. So the setup phase, that hit 21 degrees. Now, Mercury, of course, keeps going forward because it's establishing the retrograde zone. And then it gets to 4 degrees Virgo, which is that sort of teal green. You can sort of see Virgo in there. And then it stations retrograde at 4 degrees. And that just happened 2 days ago. Now, there's always a midpoint to the cycle. That's when Mercury conjuncts the sun. I'm going to show you some charts here throughout this adventure we're on. And that is when usually the awareness Mercury retrograde seeks to impart to you comes to fruition. It's when you kind of start to get whether you've been tricked into it and trickstered out, flattened with 2x4s, or you just internally are flowing with the movement of this, and you kind of get some through synchronicity. Usually synchronicity is all up in it. You get some awareness going here. And then you kind of go, oh, and it's like, imagine when we have Mercury conjuncting the sun, they line up together in the sky. This time in Leo, in the overall arc of the retrograde phases, it's in Leo. So there's this Leo revelation, this moment of awareness, the aha of, oh, that's what life's been trying to, that's what this retrograde message has been about. That's what's been trying to shift. That's what I've been trying to become aware of. It's that. And it doesn't mean there aren't further revelations ahead. It just means usually by that time, this time, because it's 2 signs, it might not exactly hold that way. But usually it means, hey, okay, I think I got the core of this. I know there's more to come. So I'm going to give you some prompts on how to work with these phases later, but I just want to give you the structure now so that as I'm teaching, you can kind of see in your mind and visualize what the retrograde looks like at that snaking back from 4 degrees as it goes retrograde as of 2 days ago. And then it starts heading back all the way to 21 degrees Leo. And that's when Mercury will station direct. In the interim, on August 18th, it hits a midpoint at 26 degrees Leo. And then heads back to the station direct August 28th. And then there's something called the integration phase. And what that is briefly for now, from August 28th to September 11th, we're going back all the way through, as you can see here, all the degrees that have been retrogressed over. And we now have to, you know what? We have to actually take our awareness and do something with it. Sometimes the integration phase is actually the hardest part of the retrograde, because it's one thing to have awareness, but now we have to source a new empowerment to take that awareness to the streets. This is when the ground of our lives starts to rumble often. We got to tell people, and with Leo on the scene this time, hey, I know you thought I was that, but I'm actually this. And a lot of people like the maps I have drawn of us, especially if on that map, we're a people pleaser. We are invisible, but we let them, in their narcissism, have the whole shiny stage, and all their needs are all that we are going to, see, not our own. Because you know what? If you're invisible to life, you're invisible to you. And visibility, hint, hint, has a lot to do with whether you see your needs enough to even know what they are. If you got issues with visibility, it's not just about showing up and showing out creatively. It can be that and is that too. But it's also about, I don't even see me. I don't see the tenderness I need right now in the grief cycle I'm in, which I'm in, and the care I need around me, and the softness I need around me because my heart's broken. I don't, wow, I didn't see that. I was too busy focused on someone else's grief or someone else's loss or someone else's needs. Well, you're invisible. So just a little hint of some of what's coming next around that theme. And that's just an aspect. But we will need to, in the integration phase, put into play what we just became aware of. And there's a lot of crossfade and bleed here. I don't want to present this as if it's strictly these markers and demarcated aspects of the three phases. It tends to be pretty much close to that, but there's a lot of like bleeding sometimes into, you might have an awareness through the retrograde and then realize immediately what you're going to have to do. And I would just say, well, the integration phase give you a minute to get more aware about some other stuff too. And then you're going to have to go do that. If you don't have to do anything, by the way, but if you want the new, something new comes from something new. So do something new. What did you get guided to do that's new? Do that. So that is how the phases work. And I call all three the Mercury retrograde process. This happens every retrograde. Every Mercury retrograde has this phase dynamic. So you don't often hear astrologers address that. And I hope that you take that away from me, that this isn't just about the retrograde. That is the most crucial alembic of the alchemy. But there's a setup. And so what I want you to do right now regarding the setup, take a moment, take a breath, and just maybe if you want to close your eyes, that's cool. But slow yourself down for a minute and just see what generates in your awareness as I ask you, what has occurred in your life as a theme since July 16th that is part of your Mercury retrograde process? What things, whether that's situations or events or internal challenges or dynamics, have been coming up that are thematic, meaning they show up in multiple places, perhaps, or they're consistently popping their head up. And even though you're trying to do a round of whack-a-mole, they still coming right back at you. Just see what comes up for you. And this is where, if you want to revisit this video, because I got to keep moving forward, pause it here and go in, see what comes up with that prompt and write it in your journal. Now, what tends to happen in the setup phase that we just went through, because we're now retrograde, is there's a lot going on in outer situations that, or perhaps internal situations that's calling you for a time of reflection, reevaluation, readjustment, and contemplation. And this time, because of the retrograde being in Leo and Virgo, it's going to be connected to those archetypal dynamics and themes of those zodiac signs and the transitional space between them. That is the third cusp energy. That is it. So I want you to explore yourself that way and consider also, this is about something regarding your mind that needs a redo. And whether that's connecting to a deeper truth that recalibrates your whole mental set, your thinking, what you believed was true before, and now isn't really showing up as true or needs to be let go of. This is about aligning to a new set of soul truths. So when you're reflecting, it also could be helpful to get that particular natal chart. Now, normally I would set up a second camera and show you how to find this retrograde in your natal chart, because this 2 signs, I think it's a little too complicated to demonstrate. I will language it through a chart, however, briefly, and maybe you can use it to help yourself see this a little better in a chart. You might already know how to do this if you're more versed with astrology. But we're going to look at Brenda Smith real quick and just look at where this Mercury retrograde is occurring in her chart, just as a way to land it a little bit. All right, we got Brenda Smith. She was born in Aspen, Colorado. She's got a moon in Virgo, Mars in Virgo, a whole bunch of stuff up there in Virgo. Her sun is in Aquarius. Now, if you don't know these symbols, I would understand that. It's like learning a new language, truly. And you can use this reference, screenshot this if you need to, and then use it as a reference. It's a legend that decodes all the planets I work with, except I do need to add Eris in here because I work with Eris now, but also all the signs and their symbols, or some people call sigils. So that there is something you do need to know before you can even look at this and make any sense of it. So that said, where is the Mercury retrograde occurring for Brenda? Well, in this case, it's actually a little easier to demonstrate because she's at the midheaven, 3 degrees Leo. That's the topmost point of the chart with that arrow right there with the Leo sign at 3 degrees, 49 minutes. And then Virgo starts the 11th house, so that's the 10th house, at 6 degrees, 52 minutes. So the entire retrograde is in the 10th house for Brenda. That means a lot of the themes I'm going to bring up and address would be playing out in her public life, professional life. It will also recruit her family and sense of home and her sense of home base, because that's the opposite in the 4th house. It always recruits that in polarity. And I'm not going to go into a lot of details reading her chart and whatever, but I'm just going to tell you that through the house, it would be, okay, in this arena of her life, which deals with the most publicly engaged we are through our ego identities and persona. That is what our job tends to be, right? Or our career or calling. That's where we're most engaged in service to other people. And for her, the retrograde is going to be bringing up a lot of reevaluation regarding themes of creative self-expression, visibility, boundaries, balance, and overall holistic balance. And are you overworking? And why are you doing that? You know, a lot of that kind of stuff. Are you being ran over by a boss who is the shadow Leo? Or, I mean, I'm just riffing around, but that gives you at least a little something. The house gives the context and perhaps, if you will, area of life that the retrograde would occur in. So I'll leave that there, but that could be very helpful in getting to some insights. All right, let's get into this cusp energy, right? Let's talk about this because I really want you to understand this. Now, to teach you this, I have to reframe how many people think of astrology just briefly here. And I'm going to do that by looking at a couple wheels and describing to you what the 12 signs of the zodiac are as a complete system of human biopsycho-mystical development. If I walked you through each sign as a step in our development, which is actually what they are, and the houses as well to some degree, then now we have a bigger and more complete picture of the cusp between Leo and Virgo. That's what I'm after here. What transitional space is that about? So to get there, we have to first understand the sequence of development, just maybe through, let's start Aries and go to Virgo real quick. I'm going to just do this real fast. But okay, so let's look at this wheel. We start in the first house with Aries, and Aries is we're born. You take your first breath, and one of the things you'll see connected to Aries is the statement, I am. It is the first separate, individuated journey out of the womb of your mother, but also, let's just go cosmic here, the womb of the cosmos, which would be symbolized by Pisces in this instance. And now you're taking a journey into Earth School, your first breath, and what happens? You're given a name. When we're born, we're given a name. We're given our first sense of identity, and that's what Aries is about. Now, all right, we go from identity to Taurus, and that's about having a sense when we're 2 years old, and each of these segments match our development by about 2 to 2.5 years, incrementally as we biologically mature, psychologically mature, and ergo biopsycho of the mystical development that I'm presenting here. So, all right, you now are in your terrible twos, you realize you have a body, and you start saying things are yours, mine, right? And now you're getting into the Taurus level of development, which is, hey, I'm on a planet in a body. Oh, wow. And then we go to Gemini, we start learning language. We start learning how to, our minds start to develop. We're probably about 5 years old here, 4 or 5 years old. And we begin to understand things have a name. And there's books. There's a whole, I mean, when I was a kid, it was the, Encyclopedia Britannica and all that kind of stuff. But you start to understand that there's communication, language. I'm a linguist. I studied linguistics in college. And there's applicability to the human brain and the neurology of the human brain around this time that makes learning languages super easy for children. Then we go to Cancer, and Cancer, and I'm just going to back to camera here, is when we step into a sense of, it's usually about the time we enter primary school or kindergarten, depending on where you live. And in that we meet the tribes of others. We don't even, I'm going to use myself as an example, growing up in West Grand or in Granby, Colorado, and not even understanding that there were other family tribes. And then you go to kindergarten, you start to realize, oh, they have a mom and dad, and they have a mom and dad, and they have a family tribe, and they have a family tribe. And I remember feeling intuitively as a kid the energies of those tribes. And I could sense within my limited sophistication at the time psychologically, but I could sense just the different emotional foundations and ancestry and different vibes and energies of, my classmates as it related to their home, where they come from. That's Cancer. And now we're also in emotional development. We're now starting to, I remember I was super sensitive, cried a lot in kindergarten, starting to understand we're interacting with people and we're shaky. We might be shaky. And there's a sense of, depending on the kind of family you come from, maybe you start to adapt or apprentice a sense of shame. I'm from a very poor family. We lived in a trailer. And so me going to primary school was when I realized that that was considered low class. I had no concept of that before then. So you start to learn that, perhaps. And there's an emotional level to that, right? And then we go to Leo, all right, Leo. Out of our family foundation, and all these things keep moving and developing. You're still learning language. You're still getting acclimated to your body. You're still biologically on the move, psychologically on the move. Well, that might not be completely accurate, because if you get traumatized, something could freeze up and get stuck on your timeline. Now, that said, Leo. All right, so we get to Leo. And now we are in the space where we creatively explore ourselves. Do you remember, playing doctor or playing fireman or nurse or whatever it was when you were a kid? Or this is, when kids, most notably girls, but I did too, whatever, play with dolls and, kind of get into that creative thing where you're having tea and you're setting these creative experiences up and you're expressing yourself that way. This is Leo. It is beginning to sense yourself as a creative, unique being. It is a soul-sourced level of creativity. And I would also add a soul agreement-based understanding of your mission in life. So when I was asked, what do you want to be when you grow up as a kid? I said, an artist and a teacher. And here I am. A dramatic teacher with a performer. Hello. So I think when we're asked that question, it depends, but oftentimes the answer we give is from the soul. So I'd go back in this retrograde. What did you say? Do you feel now that it was very soulful, or was it kind of what you learned would make you enough if you became that? Because that also is a factor here and an issue in this retrograde. Does visibility mean showing up and showing out in ways the culture and society has deemed of value? Supersized levels of value? Kardashian levels of value? Social influencer levels of value? That kind of shit. Is that something running in your creative self-expression light system? And obviously it's a retrograde. You're unconscious of it. But now it's time to check in. That could be a possibility for you. So let me take this on right now. When we look at Instagram, I don't know if you've ever gone to the search area of Instagram. If you're on Instagram, the first time I saw it, I was so overwhelmed by all the sea of moving images. And I was like, what the F is this? What? And I just felt like, ugh, all the buff bodies and the ripped. I mean, your algorithm might be producing something different for you. It's good. But the celebrities, the reels, everyone moving and all this fucking bullshit. I'm like, really? And then I click on a few. This influencer, that influencer. And I think, what is this? What is genuinely authentic versus not? Because if you are presenting a brand and being out there in the ways that is all the rage these days to become an influencer or whatever it might be, and it is not connected to your soul, then you're not visible. You're visibly invisible. You are present in all your Instagram glory and all your followers, maybe, I don't know, but you're not you. And now with AI, what's ahead? We become more fake? Yeah, probably. I see that happening now. And the Virgo and the Venus Virgo, which is happening right now, is about you are a creative ecosystem of life. You are not alive forever, by the way. You have limited resources, everybody does, of energy, focus, and time, and perhaps health. And what are you doing? Where's your energy going? I mean, now I see ads for people just to sell books on Amazon, just letting AI write the books. What in the F is that? Really? If it's even true. It's a bombardment. And I think we're all affected unconsciously, whether it's feeling like, gosh, look at that ripped dude. And here I am, 20 pounds heavy and just wish I could get to the gym, but whatever. It starts to imprint this energy of comparison and also activate that in terms of how you start to measure your worth. And it could be very unconscious. As you are in this retrograde, one of the tasks I'll assign you is to actually get curious about what I'm saying right now. You might be like, oh, I brushed that off. Do you? Because you have a psychic nervous system that plugs into what Instagram is part of, which is a global nervous system, and you are influenced by that. And if you don't understand your psychic energy senses and how your psychic nervous system even works, and how the psychic nervous system's a companion to the human nervous system, this is stuff I'm teaching in my Vertical Intuition Masterclass right now, stuff I've read as an intuitive, you are already game over. You're influenced. And I'm influenced. We are. I mean, we just are. It's okay to be influenced from the point of view of doesn't make you less than, but there is karma for this, and it ain't pretty. Who wants to walk around in comparison consciousness and devalue oneself at every turn of the next Instagram reel that shows up and spouts some nutritional supplement at you? Not me. So coming back to Leo, this childhood level of our the psychological development, biopsychological development, we're not even mystical yet, but it is soulful. Leo, I want you to think of the sun. It's just, folks, who you are is just who you are. There's nothing to effort in being you. We might have to effort in expressing our you-ness, our enoughness, our uniqueness, the Leo in us. We might have to effort to get that out. Effort meaning take responsibility for how we manage our psychic nervous system online. Take responsibility for how we roll on social media. Take responsibility. Yeah, that requires some effort. but you being you is effortless. You know, I don't sit here as a teacher and think about how to impress, I don't. I've never really done that. Not to say I don't have a shadow and I don't have vulnerabilities and want to be liked. I'm not saying that, but I am saying there's no strategy here to be something other than me. And hey, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. You're not everybody's cup of tea. That is by design. So we got to check in on this. This is an issue. We're going to come back a little bit to it, but I want you to consider, am I being visibly invisible? Who else is? And a lot of times what I find is you don't know, because there's such a facade and branding and this and that and the next. And people are just putting up quotes from other people on their feeds. And, you know, really, how about you say something from you? We need that. I need you to be you, because that's what serves me best and us best and life best. Just like the sun, it gives off luminosity that helps us grow and warm up and, you know, stimulates all the things that sunlight does for us in terms of our nervous system and dopamine and blah, blah. That's Leo. Leo, in its light and shiny, archetypally empowered dynamic, isn't just about, look at me, I'm on the stage. It's, I'm going to be myself and be my own creatively expressed king or queen. So I light you up and help you see that you are too. I'm not the only star in the sky. You're here with me. That's Leo. And if you take a minute with what I just said and talk about Mercury retrograde shadow territory and look at our culture right now through social media, now go out there for homework and try to identify who's got Leo going on and who's more like a black hole, being visibly invisible and taking in energy through our focus and time to feed them, whether it's financially or through likes, whatever. And are you in that gravitational pull? And how do you get out of it? More to come. But a little taste of Leo. I want to get to Virgo, and we're going to roll through this even with more. So from Leo, and let's just sum this up. In Leo, we come into our creatively sourced uniqueness. We become aware that we are quote unquote unique and special. And if we are supported, which of course, obviously, I just said we're not really very well, certainly not by culture these days. But if we're supported by community, family, society in this, then we're also taught that, yeah, you're special and so is everyone else. So become part of the firmament here. Light up, shine, dear star. Absolutely. We want to see that twinkle, but you're not the only sun in the sky. And thank the gods. It'd be a very dark night sky if you were the only star out there. So we come from that in our creative development into Virgo. Virgo wraps up these first 6 stages. And now we're probably, just let's track with how old we are. We're probably hitting into the early teens, which means puberty. So our bodies, systems, our hormonal systems, all these systems that are part of our body, they're starting to shift. Ooh, you know. And now we've got this whole dynamic of, hey, I'm a bio-psychic system here. I got hormones coming on. I got hair growing. I got, you know, things growing. I'm going to keep this PG best I can. And it's really about understanding yourself and your life as a system. And this is where we have to learn, depending on our gender and sex, etc., hey, I got to shave now. I've got to wear deodorant. I got to have a certain kind of hygiene. And I've got to eat a certain way to feel good. I can't just eat candy, or something with a sugar rush. If we get into athletics like I did when I was this age, you start to realize, hey, I've got to have some rituals, some habits, some systems here that will allow me to take my Leo energy and embody it in a way that's sustainable. And I can now, from this Virgo level of habits, understanding ourselves as a system, and understanding our health, I can now sustainably continue to ground and express this Leo thing. And through life, and Virgo being a service-oriented archetype, in service to the luminosity of others. So now we're here. Let's just consider we've just hit the retrograde moment, the station retrograde. I've got you in Virgo. I want to stay in Virgo. Now we're going to go Virgo backward into the themes, because that's exactly what is ahead here the next few weeks. Now, when we're thinking about this, I did mention, right, that there's a cusp energy. I think that we need to take that on now a little bit and talk about what is this third energy that comes in a Mercury retrograde like this, where there's two signs. All right, let's take a look at the cusp. Now, if you're not familiar, you probably are. There's always cusping dates when one sign transitions to another. I'm showing you generally, and it depends on the year and whether it's leap year and a bunch of other stuff. But generally, these are the cutoff dates for Leo and Virgo. Now, there's some folks and astrologers that would teach you that if you're in the last, what's called decan of Leo, or the first decan of Virgo, astrology language, you can let it go in one ear and out the other. But if you're at that transitional line, then you're kind of a bit of both. I don't think that's true. I do think you are one or the other, but what I do think is true is that if you're a cusping sign, your development is connected to the transition of that sign to the next, or the sign that precedes it. That I think is true. But solar sun sign development is definitive per the synchronicity of the time you were born. And the astrological birth chart is founded on that. And if you let that go, then you lose the container for synchronicity. That's the best way I can language this. And this actually just comes from 30 years of reading charts and seeing and sensing what was true with people. So I can't get into more of that. It's too complicated. But I do want to talk about this in-between space. Well, to understand that, we have to understand the function of Leo and Virgo, as I just mentioned in part, within your biopsycho-mystical development. Leo's about, as I said, coming back to Leo, this self-expression, becoming creatively self-realized and shining, lighting up, being seen, being visible. And that does not mean taking center stage, because there's many ways we're visible and many ways we express Leo. We're all going to do it differently, but it will always come and connect to the unique genius or shiny part of your soul that seeks to serve others in terms of light. So yeah, we could look at, hey, an actor or an actress, embodying a character and moving us through the story that's playing out in a film. Okay. But I'm just as down to tell you that the veterinarian I just saw is shining out their Leo in just an incredible, wonderful way, because my veterinarian is funny, kind of quirky, and does veterinarian medicine totally in a Leo way. And I could go around and other areas of life and service-oriented things. I mean, I've seen bus drivers beam Leo out while they're driving in my time in Chicago. I mean, come on. We have to go broader in scope here. Your charism, your light is something that is innate and germane to the soul. Do you know what yours is? And let me give you a tip that might be something to explore during this Mercury retrograde. Often I've seen, and this has happened to me, it happened to me when I was working with astrology. I had no ambition to ever become an astrologer or an intuitive or write a book or any of this. It was other people seeing my skill and going, holy crap, you should not go back into academia for psychology. You should do that because you just whipped through my family line, whipped through my psyche, whipped through my patterns. How'd you do that? And it was so natural to me. I didn't know how to answer that. I didn't see it as shiny. I actually wanted to be an actor. I was a theater major when I first started college. I didn't end that way because of the thing I'm telling you now. So are there people in your life that say, God, you're such a good mother. You're such a good writer. Oh my Lord, you are the best counselor I've ever worked with. You are, what is it? Own it. Own it as your Leo. Are you owning it as your Leo? And do you move into it with an awareness that this light serves life? This light in me. And by light, I don't mean just a light ray. I mean, hey, if you are a veterinarian, that is light. And let me give you a story that absolutely enforces that. In 2022, I had to put down my black lab. And it was my first dog that I'd ever done that with. And of course, it shatters you. I mean, if you're a dog owner or a pet owner of any kind, because I also had to put down my cat, you know how shattering that is. And the veterinarian I just talked to you about, I remember going back to her with my cats because I had gotten 2 new cats after my dog passed. And I said, is it the hardest part of your job to put animals down? And you know what she said to me? She said, no, it's actually my favorite. I said, what? It's your favorite? And she said that I get to offer these animals this gentle transition from this life where they were primarily, in my experience, loved, in my practice, loved, into the next, and that I can hold space for the people that love them and comfort them as I do that. It's my favorite part. And I was blown away. I remember walking out of that clinic and getting into my car as fast as I could so I could just bawl. That's light. That's what I mean by light. Leo light. So Virgo is about systems. It is absolutely about systems. And I think this is a time to understand yourself as a co-creative light system. What is part of that for you? Do you know your own light ecosystem? Do you know that? So I want to shift this focus with a quote from Archilochus, who was a very interesting combo, poet and mercenary from ancient Greece. And he said, you do not rise to the level of your expectations. You fall to the level of your training. Now, there's a man in recent times named James Clear that wrote a book called Atomic Habits. And he took this quote, at least its structure, and filled in his own version of it. And he said, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Mic drop. So now let's mix that with Leo. That's Virgo. Systems of what? Luminosity, shining bright, creative self-expression, as I said already, systems of light, systems of soul expression. Now, that said, I'm going to add my own little mix in. I'm going to take a stab at this structure for this quote from Archilochus. And this is me. You do not shine to the level of your soul's light. You dim down to the parts of you that manage your need to socially be enough and fit in. That is for this retrograde. That is the metric I want you to write and put up somewhere. And let me say it another way. You do not shine to the level of your soul's light. You dim down to the archetypal systems that manage your need to socially be enough and fit in. I want you to think of, I dim down to the level of my interior systems that manage my safety, security, esteem, and survival, and manage it in context to how bright the they out there says I get to be. And how to be bright, how they direct that. So you can be bright this way, but not that way. And you don't think that's in play? Why don't you go read the Twitter feed of Simone Biles and the shit show she's been putting up with since Tokyo? She couldn't shine in the vulnerability of overwhelm in Tokyo. And she was, there's a Netflix documentary if you want to watch it. She was taken to the cleaners for that. Now, what kind of heroine are you, quitter? All this stuff, right? This is what I mean about social media being a dimmer. But she regrouped, got therapy, and did exactly the work I'm talking about here. She started to, and this is my language interpretation, look at her life as a system of self-expression and light. And she thought, no, I'm going to give myself a different ending to my gymnastics career. For me, I'm going to take what I can naturally do better than anyone has ever done. And I'm just going to show up and see what happens. And we know what happened. Hello. So this Mercury retrograde is about understanding yourself as a creative system of soul and self-expression, and as a system, and looking at what compromises this system. And we're starting with Virgo here. So what would compromise your capacity to show up and show out more than your health, more than your wellness? You know, if we're struggling with a life-threatening illness or an illness that we know is going to take us out, it's a little harder to be shiny. And sometimes we shine the brightest during those processes. But has your health been off and you're not entirely sure why? All right, well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this from something I don't think I've ever heard anyone address intuitively. I downloaded this recently when I was reflecting on this program. We've had some Mercury aspects that are set up as 3-part transits. There's a ton of them, actually. I can't get into all of them. I'm just speaking through them now, just know that. But I did want to mention the Mercury and Leo square Uranus, which happens 3 times through the whole retrograde process, as well as 2 nights. Let me show this chart because it already happened. The Venus conjunct Mercury in Virgo. So at 9:12 p.m., about 45 minutes ago for me, this conjunction between Mercury, which is retrograding, and Venus, which is moving forward, happened at, I'm going to round up, 4 degrees Virgo. The moon is also in Virgo, in an opposition to Neptune in Pisces. And we've got a conjunction with Mars in Gemini and Jupiter brewing. And we've got Chiron retrograde, Eris retrograde, basically conjunct. We got some stuff going on, to say the least. Sun is in Leo. And this is a snapshot of, really, I would say, the energy of this live, because I'm speaking through all these these dynamics as I talk to you. Now, if we go back to the 4th, this whole thing shot off with a new moon in Leo. And I'm going to round down there at 34 degrees. So, and Venus was still actually in 29 degrees Leo then. Mercury was stationing to go retrograde, standing still. So this is kind of the energy that's booted us backward into the retrograde. These two charts show this. And I really want to talk through the Venus in Virgo. Venus as a planet is in astrology considered a personal planet, but it's also about how we relate to our values and how that is expressed through the choices we actually make. We can say we value something and then we can go make choices that are absolutely the opposite. You know, like people that value freedom and then actually want to take freedoms away from other people through policies, that kind of thing. And it's our choices that always reveal what we really value. And that's something I think that this retrograde is pinging. Do we really value the unique self-expression of everyone, or do we only value it when it doesn't threaten us or make us question ourselves or what we believe or what we think or call us to look at our shadow? People can light up so long as it's not so bright it illumines my shadow. That is really how our society operates mostly. And now in an era of bullying and berating as currency and as a way to manage light within politics and light on the planet. So this to me is this in part. And it's something I would wager is probably unconscious for you. Remember, we're visitors on Gaia here. It's her show, right? And I sense that we need to address many unseen changes that are occurring with the Earth that are likely causing you, because they certainly are causing me, what is called geopathic stress. Now, I'm going to briefly define geopathic stress in the original definition that it was framed through. But originally, it was considered the idea that disturbances in the Earth's energy and vibrations can cause health problems for people living above ground, certain things happening below them. So that could be natural geological faults causing geopathic stress, underground water, or man-made fracking, for example, or something like that, or tunnels. It could be sewers, pipes, utility lines. That sort of stuff was the first, I think, realization. 5G towers. I mean, there's a lot of talk about these other things, right? But the first realization that this is actually a real thing. It is a real thing. But I think it's time to expand that definition and put more value into what our planet is doing and what is happening to it right now. I mean, in case you haven't noticed, the world's on fire, or it's flooding, or it's being ripped up by tornadoes, or I live in the mountains of Colorado and I grew up here and we did not have forest fires in the 70s, really, ever. I have no childhood memories of fire. And now I'm breathing in Idaho and California's fire smoke. I'm breathing in the Front Range of Boulder and Denver's fire smoke and lions. I'm breathing in, and so are you in some particulate way. This Earth is going through unprecedented changes. And I'm old enough to remember 40 years ago what it was like before this. The sense of the Earth's energy grid, the sense of nature, and the sense of the fresh air, and the sense of, and this is really key, the rhythmic patterns and cycles within the various hemispheres of the Earth, the northern, the southern, the equatorial area. You could feel a stabilized rhythm 40 years ago that you do not feel now. I remember it's probably around 2009, I started to notice intuitively the destabilization. And I think it's time to call attention through this retrograde to that you and your health might be funky, your circadian rhythm off, because the rhythms of nature, this earth has been founded and grounded in our recorded history, are evaporating. So while we talk about this and that in politics, this should be the conversation. In part, should be on the top 3. That we are going through geological, biopsychic shifts. And now let me bring another element in, because these normal patterns of Gaia are changing. What, quote unquote, normal, historically normal. And we ain't going back, folks. It's tipped. We're not going back. I hate summer now. I hate it. It's hot. It's smoky. You know, is my house going to burn down? Who knows? If you live, do you know how many tornadoes there were in the southern and Midwest part of the United States? Go Google it. It will blow your mind. We're talking thousands. I don't see that on the news. Rarely. Towns being wiped off the map in Oklahoma. And you think in the holism of Gaia, maybe you don't, right? But people, that doesn't affect you. It absolutely does. There's not one thing that we're not affected by in this web. And it breaks my heart to say that, but we're now called to find a new, how do we stabilize in this? Because geopathic stress is everywhere. The oceans, totally, coral reefs are bleaching out. They can't get ahead of it. The water's too warm. Too late. Polar bears will probably go extinct in our lifetime. I'm not making this shit up. And here's the thing you need to perhaps understand about this. Animals and other species, just as we do, hold a certain energetic vibration for this planet. You need only see an elephant or a herd of elephants in person to understand exactly what I just said. They ground a certain grace, light, and energy to Gaia. And they're being poached. Polar bears do as well. All animals, dolphins, lions, whales, and us too, hold a certain energetic grounding frequency for the planet. And we are in a mass extinction event. There's species gone. We never even got to name. And it has spun the compass and frequency of the planet into chaos. That is why you might not be feeling quite right. And you can't locate it in your diet. You can't locate it in anything that you can see. But you feel it. This shit's off. I sense that what's going to be required going forward from here is for us, I can suggest some things now, but I think a more comprehensive toolkit is forthcoming and needs to be explored. But we're going to need new ways to get our geo location and rhythms established. I know so many people don't sleep well now. So many people are just constantly in some form of anxiety or stress, and they don't know why. That's when you look to your empathic system. That's when you look to the web. You look outside of yourself and you take a little bit of an intuitive inventory. Wow, okay, every species on this planet holds an energetic vibration. So do people, so do countries. And you know what else disturbs the geo-energetics of Earth? War. It's absolutely a polluter. And what's more destructive than bombing, whether it's Ukraine or Gaza, into the ground? And this is just facts, folks. This isn't sides. We got to stop that. So, getting on my soapbox a little bit here because I care. And also, I'm tired of feeling like shit. I don't know about you. And I would consider you to explore this element in yourself. Am I suffering from geopathic stress? When you travel to another country and get quote unquote jet lag, that's a form of geopathic stress. You've just flung your body across an ocean, usually, right? And you've landed somewhere else with different energetics, different energy grids. And you got to adjust. It's not just the time zone. It does that too, though. Ugh. So I think it's important for us in this Venus conjunct Mercury, a message from Venus. All right, we can talk about Leo creativity till the cows come home, but it won't matter if you're just surviving because you're in a zone where climate change and global warming, let's call it what it is, the earth is hotter, is just wiping people out. Do you think the town in Oklahoma that got wiped off the map, one of many, is worried about their creative self-expression? I mean, so this is where these two in the cusp, the third energy is going, okay, let's talk about that transition from Leo to Virgo. You have to earth the light, and it's earth through the Virgo systematic dynamics of the ecosystem of Earth. If you don't eat, I don't expect you to be showing up and showing out your creativity because you won't have the energy. You know, you got to eat food. Have we even thought about how we're going to actually have food going forward when farming zones will be now tornado zones or flood zones? This is 5 years off. So, hey, this is our blind sides while we're thinking about, whatever is happening on Instagram or this or that or whatever. We get caught up in the shiny, false bullshit. This is what's happening beneath our feet in the atmosphere. And do what you will with my coaching here and my Judge Judy, bringing down the Virgo hammer, but this is real. And it's going to require a lot of soulful, new ways to move in the world. And I think new rituals and systems and habits so that we can maintain some sense of balance and rhythm in our actual physical bodies and where we're located on this planet. Now, moving into Leo from that. And now I'm going to talk about, hey, Mercury is, in Leo is trining, was squaring Uranus. And I think that's the square. I've said Uranus in Taurus is about the radical revolutionary thing of just getting your ass on the planet and looking around here. Stop looking up at the sky. William Shatner had a journey on Jeff Bezos' rocket that changed him forever, that left him absolutely in a state of, I don't give a shit about space. I care about Gaia. Go Google that and read it. It is soul summoning. Mr. Star Trek, the archetype of space travel through our own mythologies as portrayed through the television show and the movies, said, space ain't where it at. It's cold. It's dead. Stop looking there. Look at the ground. That's Uranus and Taurus. And hey, if we can get some technologies going here to revolutionize and harmonize the damage here we're doing, awesome. We're going to need it. And Leo, Mercury retrograde in Leo, squaring Uranus 3 times, is Uranus saying to Mercury, hey, I got a message for all those creatives. Get your ass busy giving a shit about your food and what it takes to create the resources you need, the systems of your creativity, because they're evaporating in front of your eyes. So there's some of that flavor. And then we got Mercury retrograde in Leo trining Eris. These are all 3 time passes, and also Chiron. We've got to heal some social wounds and cultural wounds. That's the providence of Chiron. And attend to our own sacred wound. Chiron's in Aries. It's about, hey, I have a wounded identity. And I'm part of the generation of Chiron and Aries, and there's a deep sense of, where do I belong? I feel like I just don't belong anywhere. The orphan archetype is part of Chiron's archetypal arcana. He was rejected by his mother and father in myth. And that pattern is part of the journey of Chiron. And it's also about the shamanic journey to the sacred wound, the wound that humbles you and wipes out the ego mind and all of your identities to the point where all that's left is the door to your soul. You're going to walk in. That's the shamanic initiation. You're going to walk in. And usually we walk through that door through a wound. So there's an activation in this. And, you know, back to this question for you. What does it mean to shine? I think we need to start riffing around with that and letting ourselves have a creative expansion with that. Maybe shining right now is me Judge Judying this Mercury retrograde session, and it's coming from the brightest light of my soul for you and us and all the animals. That can be shining. And yeah, someone going to come and write some nasty comment on my YouTube channel? Probably. Am I going to care? No. You know why? Because I'm just being me, the guy that gives a shit about everyone and everything. And that's all I got. That's all I need. And I'm enough. And so whatever you say is about you. Because I'm coming from the purest of intentions here. And that's just to model for you how to shine, maybe, perhaps. You're enough no matter what. You need soul esteem to get into that level of, yeah, I'm not bound in my creative expression of my soul to the opinions of other people or, you know, what they think. Of course, open to critique, as we all, I think, humbly should be. But if I'm speaking from my heart and truth, I'm good. So I want that for you. I want that for you. And I think this Mercury retrograde does as well. So we also want to take a journey into when we were and are told still not to shine too bright. Who is the first person, or what was the first thing that said that to you? Can you recall that? And that's said in multiple ways. So, yeah, Robert, don't you shine as a gay man. Not cool. In fact, you're going to where it's darkest and all you got is fire. So chill that out. You know, what is it in you that isn't accepted, that you can't shine through, that you were told immediately, or it was impressed into you, or it's a family legacy thing, or a cultural dynamic? You know, women, don't you shine too bright. Don't you climb that corporate ladder. Don't you become president of the United States. We're seeing this all on full display right now because that's what synchronicity is. That's what astrology is. We're living it. We're seeing it on the biggest screen that we have. It's called life. So Instagram, oh yeah, you can shine, but first you got to lose this much weight and get shredded. I mean, I literally watch some of these infomercials that pop up, and whether it's on YouTube, sorry if they pop up on mine, but I can't control that, where it's about getting shredded and this and that. And before you know it, you can't eat a damn thing because something's going to fuck you up. Like, don't eat that and don't eat that. And that's oatmeal slows your metabolism. I mean, really? What are we doing? So let's talk about Leo and the sun and just go into this archetype for a minute. The sun is the vitalizing principle of all life here. It is the core energy of the pattern of the solar system. Without it, there's no solar system. It's called a solar system. And I want you to internalize what I just said. Your interior solar self, soul, is the core of you. And you have inner patterns that are either downloaded from culture, society, and perhaps family, and they may not match up with your interior solar system. And for you to actually be solar, you got to let those go and their identities. That's here in this retrograde. Why would you partner up and match magnetically with light dimmers? Well, because they're there to teach you shining isn't about asking for permission. It's about just being you. It's not being hyper compensatorial either, where I'm going to go and to shine, I have to be the most famous actor or actress ever, or whatever that is, or influencer. Okay, that's one way to go. If that's your destiny, good for you. But you know what? Shining means a lot more. I find my vet far more luminous than any fucking influencer on Instagram, I'll tell you that. Now, just saying, when we look at Leo, one of its shadow archetypes is the narcissist. And we all have the narcissist in us to some degree. There is healthy narcissism, psychologically speaking. Being self-centered is a positive thing. And it's actually a very positive Leo thing, to be centered in oneself. To understand your boundary, your circumference, comes from being in the center of the sovereign throne of self, and understanding that lets you know what boundaries you need when they're being violated, and also what your needs even are overall. So I'm down with that. We oftentimes are shamed into thinking that's selfish. Drop it. But there is shadow narcissism, clearly. And that's where someone does not have a core solar sense of themselves, whether that's wounding and trauma from childhood or whatever, wherever it comes from. So they have adapted or downloaded, if you will, the narcissist archetype, the shadow narcissist archetype, to literally take light from other people. So sometimes the light dimmer isn't just shaming your light down, they're siphoning it off you. That's what narcissists do. Don't shine brighter than me. And then they siphon. And that's why we feel so drained when we're around someone that certainly isn't a full-blown pathology with this pattern or complex. And it's, it's here too. So I would imagine we're going to watch, as we already are, this pattern play out in egregious shadow ways in politics and across the world for this retrograde. And it's just a reflection back to us around, I'm not going to have that kind of stuff manage my light anymore. So if that's where I'm at, I'm no longer interested, let me say it another way, in managing how people value me or do not. Value my light or do not. I'm not interested anymore. And therefore, I'm going to let go of the identities that go with that kind of management. Yeah, like codependent, people pleaser, shadow rescuer. Done. Do you know how much light you just freed up for yourself? And now you're not a magnetic match to narcissists. Narcissists smell you out. Ooh, that's a blood donor, says the vampire form of a narcissist. And they work, the vampire at least, through seduction. Oh, you're great. Let me into your house. Once they're in, their hooks are in, they're sucking the light out of you. You know the story. So this might be a time where you have to really take an inventory. And it's not to make anyone right or wrong. Let me be very clear. This isn't an exercise in judging anybody. This is an exercise in self-connection, clarity, compassion for yourself and others. But compassion doesn't mean I don't get to say, get the fuck out of here. Compassion means you're enough no matter what, so am I, but get the fuck out of here. I don't want to play blood donor vampire with you anymore. You're abductions to my wounded ego are over. And you might need to make some of those shifts and then take an overall view of the whole system you're in. So what does it really mean to be visible? It means that you actually see you. You see you. Let's not go to who sees you or who doesn't. Stop. Do you see you? The vampire doesn't see themselves in the mirror. So they've got to take from other people to have a sense of self. Take life force, drain light. Do you see you? What do you see about you? And, this is a question to sit in and roll with through the retrograde. Am I visible to me? Or do I route my visibility through, do others see me? Controlling whether they see me, controlling how they see me. It's human for us to want to present a certain image or professionalism in the world. I think that's great and nothing right or wrong about it at all. But are you you? And what does it mean for you to be you? What does it, in fact, take to authentically shine and be visible? Well, now enter my sponsor for this particular Mercury retrograde. I'm going to tell you what it takes. And it's funny, I'm going to teach through this at the same time as I'm going to show you this promotion. So I did a course some years ago, and it is called Self-esteem, Confidence, and Courage. It's 50% off right now until August 21st. These sorts of things are what buy my studio lights and pay my employees and keep me rolling as who I am in service to you. So also, this is an incredible course. I'll put a link into the underneath the video, and you can also just go to ohotto.com. It's right on the front page, ohotto.com. But what you need is these three forces to begin really, truly centering in visibility and showing up and showing out and being shiny with who you are. And what really manages these in you, and this is teaching you right now, not just promoting, I'm teaching you as much as I can. Soul esteem, confidence, and courage, they're midwives of your soul. Think about that. Your esteem system has everything to do with how visible you are or aren't, how confident you may or may not feel. We all have an esteem system. And I can't get into a lot of depth around this. I've taught many a masterclass about it, but it's going to be the arbiter of pretty much everything you creatively do in your life. Your esteem system. How do you get value in the world? And there's nothing right or wrong about how we do it, but there's karma for how we do it. So I can do it in a way that disconnects me from my authenticity, or I can do it in a way that keeps me connected to my authenticity, but perhaps I take a few arrows in my back for being a bit of a truth teller. Oops. Meaning you get rejected or someone doesn't like you. So courage, what are these things? And what I discovered through readings, it's about the truths that you're aligned to, and most notably unconsciously aligned to, that collapse your potential here. So if you're not aligned, I have to say adequately, because I don't know anyone that's perfectly aligned to this truth that they're enough no matter what, which I call soul esteem. It's a matter of degrees, and it's a work in progress, I think, the whole of our lives, because we're in a culture constantly telling us to be enough, do this and that and this and that. But if you were locked into that thing, if I said, you know what, here's what's up. You're enough no matter frickin' what. And you took that truth in and it activated you. Full on. I'd look at you next and I'd go, okay, now what do you want to do with your life? Because you're free. You are free to shine. You are free to be visible. You are free. What now? When you take that metric and you look at life and we look at what we do with our Leo energy and we begin to go, okay, I dim down or I let myself shine. And what becomes the arbiter of that is, Robert's right, it's my esteem system. Fundamentally, we're wired on a human level to be of value in the world because that's how we survive. That is just sacred prostitute territory 101. I love it. Yet, sometimes we've got to be willing to shine and be too bright for some people, and maybe encourage them to put on some sunglasses if they want to hang out. But they're certainly free to leave. But that has nothing to do with whether you're enough. And so there's the mystical level of truth, which is soul esteem. And when we align to that, that activates what? Confidence and courage. And it's about our capacities. And this is all within, that's why I chose to put this on such a massive discount. It's all within the Leo energy of this Mercury retrograde. So when we're aligning ourselves to the intuitive nature of mystical truth, we become also more of a truth technician, which I love, which is just looking at things karmically for what they are. No story, no story of enoughness or lack thereof. No story. I'm enough no matter what. It's just what's true. I'm me, you're you. We both got our passports stamped to incarnate here. Cool. I don't actually like you. Okay. Okay. Then you're not meant to be in my orbit. I'm meant to be in yours. Okay, moving on. So there could be something that I've identified through readings that I call post-esteem anger that could surface later on, certainly in the integration phase, when you realize how you've let people dim you down, take advantage of you, control you, and this isn't to play victim, but these are technical truths. And then you start to wake up to some more new fire in you, new value, new esteem. And then you look back at the choices you made when you didn't have that esteem you're blazing in now, and you go, fuck that. What the fuck was that? And you get mad. You get angry. For a time when you lack the esteem to have better boundaries, to not be a blood donor to some kind of vampire. And then you get mad at the people involved probably as well. It's post-esteem anger, normal. And it actually is a wonderful sign you are becoming more empowered. That might show up here. So I cover that in this course. I also cover the truth of the Bodhisattva soul contract and archetype, how shame has created various metaphysical models of truth that ain't so true, what determines the power of a truth, how a truth can limit or open access to a new dimension of potential and visibility and shininess. And I cover how truth has a certain anatomy that's comprised of 4 interrelated levels, and what truths activate soul esteem, confidence, capability, and courage, and how to align to them. I really would encourage you, go check that out. Really, it's super helpful. Now, what does it mean to shine and be visible, and what does it require via Virgo? Virgo, one of the archetypes within Virgo that I absolutely love is the Virgin. Hello, right? But Virgin in ancient times didn't mean chaste or virgin as we think of now, not having had sex. What it meant was this: if you were a virgin of a temple, that temple was assigned to Aphrodite, Artemis, Zeus, Apollo, pick your god or goddess. And if you served in that temple, then the vow was to align to that god or goddess. And that god or goddess, quote unquote, owned you, so to speak, through the bond, through the alignment. And what that meant on a mortal level is that you were a virgin. And what virgin meant then, as it was originally born into the world as an actual concept and word, it meant you can't marry this person because they belong to the god or goddess. They belong to the gods. So a virgin was someone that could not be owned, because marriage was oftentimes about ownership. And a virgin was, in a sense, self-possessed. Of course, in this alignment and affiliation and sort of marriage with the god or goddess. But nonetheless, you couldn't own the virgin. The gods owned her, or him. And this archetype connecting into the virgin, into Leo, to me is about, you're going to shine, you're going to be creatively on fire when no one can own you. Meaning no one can dictate your luminosity. And hey, let's keep it real. There's always going to be someone that can take you down a few lumens. We're human. But we have greater capacities to let a lot of that go and shine a hell of a lot brighter. And we shine why? Back to Virgo, to serve others. We shine because it's our nature to be who we are and to serve others. A funny little story as I lose my voice. By the way, hello, everybody. My God. I'm on to my, okay, 2 hours. Good. Well, it's not 3 yet, so I'm not at my Saturn one. Hi, everyone. I want to take a minute. This is a live. Yeah, okay. Mother said, don't be a show off. Absolutely. Yes. I'm loving your comments. Let me just hydrate. Narcissistic relationships that gotta go. I'm feeling you. Yeah, I love it. So hi, Lisa, Frank, Jazz. Love your name. Johnny hates jazz. Oh, so what I do during retrogrades is I just go back and listen to 80s music. It just brings me to my happy place. So I was doing some Johnny hates jazz today, if you guys remember from the 80s, followed by Little Cocteau Twins. I went down to the Smiths earlier than that. And then it was time for some New Order. And then I got into all kinds of Depeche Mode and topped that off with the Eagles. I mean, I'm very eclectic. So Jill Gosling, Kate Zimmer, Delos Rice, Chris. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. Yes, the 80s, those of us that were fortunate enough to participate. Oh, it was Duran Duran in the car on the way to the gym. And, oh, yeah, I've been rocking it. Prefab Sprout. I'm going to go into all sorts of stuff. The Style Council. Who's tracking? Okay. Communards, Bronxy Beat. Okay, I got to stop because this whole live will be my 80s list, which I will thoroughly enjoy. And you'll be like, what? I thought he was going to help us shine. Well, where the hell was I anyway? So Virgo is about really understanding you got to own yourself in some kind of way. But I'm not saying, I'm saying this as an archetypal, in sort of an archetypally pure way. And then there's reality, right? And it's just a matter of, okay, I've got to be mindful now of who has some kind of authority over my luminosity and why. And then again, you have to define for yourself what your luminosity is, what your light's about, what it means to shine, what it means to show up and show out. It means something different, I think, for everybody. And I'll just reiterate my little quote here. You do not shine to the level of your soul's light. You dim down to the parts of you that manage your need to socially be enough as defined by society and culture, and then fit in. We dim down for that, right? And I know I can think of times where, obviously my gay identity is a huge part of my dimming, massive part of my also sacred wound. But we all got something that throttles our luminosity. And it's not always the they out there in that sense of a light dimmer in your life or a light dimmer troll on social media or whatever it is. It's often just our own systems, Virgo, of how we manage safety, security, esteem, and survival. You have a whole system in you that I then go into and look at what's the archetypal team of this system. And one that I'm going to be taking on in 2025 through a deep in-person event is the invisible child and the child archetype and other child archetypes. That's a big player too. When we're told children should be seen and not heard, it's not about not being heard, it's not being visible. And many of us from my generation and before me heard that. And what does that imprint upon you? If you want to survive and be of value to the family, and then ergo culture and society, do not be seen, hide, or hide this, or hide that, or dim this down, or dim that down. Don't be so luminous. Who do you think you are? And there's usually some, like, who do you think you are? Cleopatra? I mean, something thrown in there, right? To really drive it home. So, yeah. This is about understanding yourself as a light system of luminosity, of visibility, of self-expression. Think as a technician, think as a karmic technician in this retrograde. Bring this perspective of, I am a system of visibility or invisibility. Which is it? Depends maybe on the circumstance, situation, social context, day, I don't know. But track it. Start to know yourself. Start to know what the light dimming around you is, whether it's a person or a situation or just life in some way, or the political landscape, which would dim anyone out pretty much. I mean, what dims you? And this isn't about avoidance of that. It's about boundarying and saying, okay, now I recognize your capacity to dim me. Whether that's you shut my voice down, you encourage me to self-disconnect. You actually bring me into magical thinking and fantasy about manifestation and what it takes to actually co-create in life. And that isn't empowering. That is not at all connected often to service and to Virgo, what's happening to the damn planetary ecosystem right now. I don't see people putting the Amazon rainforest on their vision boards as something they're going to go serve and heal. And to me, that's a bunch of spiritual immaturity, which I address in my other thing that you can still buy, by the way, because it's still on sale. I taught on this, and you can go watch the video on YouTube. It's quite comprehensive, but this is just one more sponsor for the Mercury Retrograde. My Saturn in Pisces, 12 lessons in mystical maturity. I go through the whole Saturn and Pisces cycle astrologically, and then I actually follow that up with a masterclass called 12 Lessons in Mystical Maturity. Don't miss this, y'all. It ends, well, really tomorrow, but go check that out on my website as well. Both are right on the homepage. But that said, Saturn retrograde in Pisces is also giving Mercury retrograde in Leo and Virgo a message. And it's everything it's basically take my last live and I'll think, okay, that message from that live is now coming through Leo, Virgo language and archetypal dynamics. So when I say messenger of the gods, is exactly what I mean. These forces are all here. And the overall gravity that coheses all of this together is holism. Let me riff through that for a minute. We're all one. We share one atmosphere, one earth, one sky, one really ocean. We are, yeah, we really are. This is not woo-woo. We're really all one. And man, are we learning it the hard way. Certainly through climate change and through political divisiveness and through, you name it. So coming back to some of the messaging that I offered in the Saturn live, Saturn in Pisces live, Saturn retrograde in Pisces live, shining can be this. I'm just going to live my life through the metric of aspiring to be the answer to someone's prayer. Just simply by being me. This isn't something I have to effort. I am part of the whole. And if I light up, and if I understand what it means now to have a light practice in my life, because I certainly understand dark practices. Culture's taught me that, families taught me that, politics has taught me that quite well. I need a light practice. I need to stay illumined, and that takes focus and intention. It is not just something usually that we arrive at in this life without some mystical muscle, maturity, and being able to actually tell holistic karmic truths, which Virgo is all about. Virgo is a technician. I love this archetype. You have no idea. And so it's a good friend of mine, let's just say. And this is about, can you shift your mental set from personal to technical, which is still personal. But the shift is this. When you go from personal to technical, what you neutralize is your inner shadow victim. The technician just sees the karmic system as it is. There's no story there. There's just data and karmic factors and evaluating technically the holism of a system. This is about you evaluating technically the holism of your creative, soul expressed self, and knowing that you soul express if you pull that off through some kind of light system. And part of that is being connected to the light of Gaia, the light of nature, the light of Gaia's ecosystems, rhythms, patterns, etc. And I'm in geopathic stress because the whole rhythm of Earth is in chaos now. It's tipped into chaos. It will not be recalibrating in our lifetime. It's done. And if you hear me say that and resist that, that's fine. But in your gut, I have a sense you know I'm absolutely right. And I hate saying that. I was hoping we would beat the clock. But we didn't. So I want you to consider all these dynamics. I mean, it's a lot, right? What does it mean to dim? What does it mean to shine bright? What is the greatest creative act of luminosity you can ever offer this world? Well, I'm going to say it's show up and show out as yourself. That's it. There's no one to be but you. I mean, cliche, right? But hey, mystical truth. So this Venus conjunction that we've shared in through this live tonight, this is it. It's a value. You know, Venus in the Kabbalah, which I studied for a long time in my 20s in a Hermetic lodge, unites all the Sephirot when the symbol of Venus is put over the tree of life. And it's a sacred symbol. It's heaven and earth. And it is understanding it's all connected. This dimension of life on earth has just as much value as the light and energy realms from whence we came. You know, and any other heaven versus earth bullshit is probably what's fed into the patterns that got us to this destabilizing of the rhythms of earth. It's played a big part. So it's a lot. I'm going to take a minute and, you know, I'm going to wrap up my thoughts here and show off a couple more charts. Does anyone have any questions? I'm sort of game to see what's up. And also let me know what resonates the most out of what I've offered so far. This is kind of it. We're coming to the end, but I would offer this Mercury, because it's been talked about by a lot of other astrologers, appropriately so, but this Mercury in Leo square Uranus Taurus, what that really represents is squares in astrology represent the friction of a blind side trying to become conscious. So it's like Uranus having this awareness of a holistic awareness in the realm of Taurus, it wants us to wake up to. But we have, as a culture, a shadow relationship with Leo through narcissism. Just go on Instagram. I just keep saying this, but me, be like me, buy this and be like me, do this and be like me. Miss me with it, right? So, but it is a huge blindside. And it's going to be interesting to see, and I mean that in a sort of painful way, what's ahead while we're not looking at all that's going on here with our own ecology. And instead, focused on, sadly, things that feed into a shadow narcissism for ourselves. Evaluate that for yourself. I mean, I'm susceptible to it as well. And it's about having a light practice of loving yourself no matter what. You got to bring that compassion to see the shadow clearly, but also, hey, yeah, I can't stop, scrolling or this, putting my focus here or there, everywhere, and I'm scrambled and Rome's burning. And you weren't born to let it burn. I wasn't born to let it burn. So, all right. Let me see if you got some questions. Be the flame of self. Griselda, yes. Yes, I'm doing an in-person workshop next spring, and probably in Boulder. I'm setting that up right now. And it's going to be on the invisible child and the invisible child's team. I figured what better way to be seen but in person with me and we'll do this work. So that's going to be put on my website. Jiang, hi. Welcome to Boulder, Colorado, by the way. Shining one's light, Leo, need for light practices, Virgo. Yes. She's also an astrologer. Thank you very much for that. Okay, technician archetype. All right. How do we know when it's time to move on? How do I pull up questions? I haven't done this in a while. Warrior Queen. There we go. Okay, and I got to remember to take it down. Well, synchronicity is going to be telling you, right? Things are how do you, let me reframe your question through Virgo. How do we know when a system's done? And I bring this insight from a reading I did years ago on someone who said to me, Robert, I'm just in a meltdown. I'm just in a meltdown. And I remember saying, fantastic. A meltdown is the collapse of a system that's had its time. So how do we know when it's time to move on? Well, let's just think about how that message could show up through the same thing. Like you just feel like things are melting down. Things are not working. There's one clue. You're tired of shadow dancing with people, especially light dimmers and vampires and narcissists. You're drained and you attract them because you're an archetypal match. All right. What matches with them? So I'll just throw out a few here for vampires. Blood donor. Was the blood donor, hey, come bite my neck because if you need me in my blood, that's how my esteem system operates its value. So you actually make me feel like I'm wanted. You need me, and that gives me an esteem bump. And so here, the problem is that's not sustainable. You eventually you bleed out. So it might have been a way to get some kind of focused value from a parent growing up, or a teacher or someone that you looked up to, was to not have boundaries. So we're taught, hey, you want to be of value to me? Don't have any boundaries. That's taught through abuse of all kinds. That's taught through weird relationships where a parent makes their child their spouse. It's taught through a lot of ways. Don't have boundaries if you want value. So it's taught to people who maybe come from very poor backgrounds. You don't get boundaries, they do. The people in the class or caste system, as it may be. So when you finally hit a bottom with something, a person, a pattern, your own self-relationship, your own shadow victim, your own being invisible, it's time to move on. And you know that because you're on repeat. There's evolve and repeat. I got a course like that. That's not on sale, but I have a course on that on my website as well. Are you evolving or repeating? And repeat, we know it. We know the loop. And we have a whole interior archetypal team that's going to manage you, what I call treadmilling your timeline. You don't ever go forward and you never go into the unknown. You stay looped. And it's a loop that stretches into the past, checks in. Yeah, should we stay where we are in the present? Yep. Reports to the present. And now we're looping like we're on a treadmill. And then you start doing the next self-help thing and this and that, but none of it's addressing identity, where your archetypal identities come from, what they manage for you, and what overall as a system manages your safety, security, esteem, and survival. These forces that might be sabotaging you into a time loop or treadmilling your timeline or repeat cycle, they saved you at one time. They had their use. But if you're finding, another answer to your question, that, hey, I'm stuck in childhood here. I'm stuck in my child archetype. I'm stuck in the shadow victim. I'm stuck. And I think that something's going to be new. It's just a repeat. Okay, it's information, technical information. Let's get technical. What's it going to take to get you out of that loop? And that's a lot of different things to say in terms of like what it might take. I'll just offer a core one, and that's a willingness to not know what's outside that loop and step right the fuck into it. So track yourself, track your loop. You know the loop. You know the players inside of you and outside of you, the archetypal matches. You know this. And if you don't, all right, it's time to actually do a bit of plotting this down. And then at some point, when you're about ready to loop back, don't. Take one micro step into something new, just for a minute. And working with your system this way, working with a spiritual director, working in one of my classrooms, whatever synchronicity lines up for you. And start owning. I just had a synchronicity to get out of this loop. It's like being in the Matrix and then realizing through deja vu, which happened in the Matrix, that something's shifting in the Matrix. The loops are being shifted. All right, you just saw that. There's your synchronicity. Now, all right, become the one. So, all right. Well, look, everyone, I hope this is helpful. I want to end by framing this through the phases. And let me just pull up the midpoint chart. The midpoint of this is going to be contained within the Mercury retrograde itself on August 18th. Now, if you know astrology, you look at this chart, there's a lot to notice. For one, Uranus is in that square I've been talking about, right to Mercury and the sun. Boom, massive. In fact, it's on the 19th that, actually, rather, it's the day before, on the 17th, that is really active. And then also you can see Venus in Virgo. Where is she? She's now in direct opposition to Saturn and Pisces. All the themes I'm talking about coming full circle, really bubbling up. And that is, bringing heaven and earth together, understanding that all of life and all of the earth has value. This is not a place of banishment. It is not any of that crap. It is as valuable as quote unquote heaven. And we got to start acting like it. We're one world. We got to start acting like it, and choosing like it, and voting like it. And you can see that Jupiter is conjunct Mars Mars, in fact, just passed over Jupiter previously a few days before that, and conjunct Jupiter in Gemini. There's a lot going on this fall with Mars going retrograde in Cancer and Leo, and also Jupiter, the Jupiter cycle with the Jupiter retrograde. I do have a 2024 astrological guide and forecast available on my website if you want to go get that. There's still, even though we're kind of getting to the end of 2024, there's still a lot in there that I think would be very useful to have. And all right, so we also have a full moon in Aquarius ahead the next day. So this just, is really about now understanding an Aquarian thread. And Aquarian and the preparation, all this is about is for the entrance into the age of Aquarius, which we're cross-fading into. I wouldn't say we're in it yet, but we got a foot in. And the Aquarian humanitarian level of truth is, this is one world. It's always been one world. We may not have known that because we couldn't go from continent to continent back in the day, but it was always one world. And like I just said, we got to start acting like it. So it's about living with a different consciousness. And there's that thread in this as well. I think there's a lot of triggers of wake up kind of happening in this retrograde overall. Wake up to your creative uniqueness. Wake up to how that connects to the all of it all. Wake up to the firmament of stars, and your mission is to shine bright so other stars know they're a star. I mean, when you work within the mystical laws of holism, check this out, and I'll probably finish on this. You now have access to the whole grid of power that holism is. When you've decided that's not part of holism, or that group's not part of holism, or whatever it is, you just cut yourself off from, let's just call it a light grid, an energy grid. You just cut yourself off from power. If you want to stand in mystical power in a way where you channel light through choice and consequence, and you X factor your ass, where you create flow charts that weren't even scripted in your contract, that level of mystical juju, it's not going to come from how good you visualize and all this bullshit out there. It's going to come from you being in exactly what this is all about. I am connected to the whole, and I'm going to live through a mystical code now. That all is one, and I won't do this perfectly, and that's okay. That's part of the code. Love myself no matter what. I'm enough no matter what. Mystical truths. Boom, boom, boom. But it is about coming to, hey, things happen in life. I'm not opted out of a lot of that, and I can happen to life if I want to. And when I do, and this is Joseph Campbell, reference to Joseph Campbell as he taught through myth. When I first meet a god or goddess as an adversary, it's because I'm not in harmony with, let's just say, their frequency, their pattern, their power. But once I've been initiated into Neptune, now I got Neptune on my side. And the god that thwarted me and smited me before has now become a co-creative force and ally within my journey from here. So Joseph Campbell, paraphrasing a little here, would say, hey, being in holism is like finally surrendering in a way to the whole holistic nature of reality, life, and creation, so that now all of that is on your side. And you become a force of light, of connection, transformation, alchemy. And it's not about you getting to enough. Why? You already know you're enough. That's the purest form of Virgo service. So when we get to the integration phase, let's just come back to where we're headed here. August 20th through September 11th, Leo to Virgo. This is where everything I've taught you, shared with you, this is where the rubber meets the road. And, you know, it's frictious sometimes, right? You can smell the rubber, you know, peeling off the tire sometimes, squealing as the tire rotates and tries to get traction on the road. So, you know, it's all good. If it gets a little bumpy, you're on the right track. Let that be an affirmation, like, I'm doing something different. That's why the bumps are here. But in the meantime, I hope that you'll take advantage of all this information and apply it and be with it. Like I said, watch this video probably a few times and track your process here and see where you are led and where your truths really emerge. And I hope that the guidance serves that, really. I mean that. So I wish you well. Happy Mercury retrograde, I guess. I don't know. And I'll see you again in another live stream event, certainly in other courses. And just to kind of keep you informed of what I'm up to, I'm actually finishing up a vertical intuition masterclass on my website with a student body. I'll be done with that in earnest by the end of September. And then I'm taking some time off, but I'm coming back in November. I'll still be doing lives, but I'm coming back in November to offer my 2025 forecast and also announce the launch of my astrology in-depth program, teaching astrology as per how I work with it in 2025. We have also a new online course coming in 2025 that I'll tell you about right around the solstice. And then I'm going to do an in-person event in most likely Boulder, Colorado in late spring of 2025. So that's kind of what I'm up to, y'all. I hope to see you somewhere in all of that. I do other things besides astrology, obviously, based on just my intuitive work and you know, what I've learned after all these years. So thank you so much for coming. Hey, share this video, give it a thumbs up. Please like it. That helps me serve more people. I put a lot of work and energy into this, obviously, and I would really appreciate that. It's also just a nice karmic way of saying thank you back to me, just simply liking the video and sharing it with whoever you think it'll speak to. And I'll see you soon in the next one. Namaste. And hey, seriously, have a compassionate, illuminating, and transformational Mercury retrograde. Namaste.